Here is the sexist attitude that became evident. This is what men said in the 1960s. Quote, "Do your own thing, but let the women clean up the mess." That's how men thought in the 1960s. Terrible. No, I'm not making it up. Do your own thing, but let the women clean up the mess. Now let me ask you this. Am I talking about every single person in the 1960s? No. But I am talking about the sexual revolution among youth in the 1960s. Men and women lived in communes together. Many men and women. No worries, free love. Might have a child with this girl or a child with that girl. I mean, communes were a big deal in the 60s where men and women, young men and women just went and lived together. Not, you know, you, me and this girl or him and that girl. Everybody was kind of everybody's boy and girl. And it caused some problems that we have in society. So that's all part of the sexual revolution. Now, do you guys understand? I'm not trying to be, you know, strange here, but that's what it was about. A lot of the problems we have today with the sexual attitudes all started in the 1960s. We're not in the 50s, okay? Okay, we'll move on to Haight, Ashbury, San Francisco, California. See this up here? Haight, Ashbury, we'll get to that in a minute. Josh Miller brought me back that from Haight, Ashbury last summer and gave it to me. And that'll make sense in a minute, okay? Haight, Ashbury, San Francisco, California. Now, if you wanted to find the center of the counterculture movement, where all these members of the now generation were living, you pointed directly to San Francisco. 2 streets in San Francisco, Haight and Ashbury. That's where the counterculture movement was witnessed at its best or its worst, however you want to look at it. Okay? That's where you, if you want to say, hey, I want to see the counterculture movement, I want to see the now generation in swing, you went to San Francisco at the intersection of Haight and Ashbury. That's where it was happening. Okay? Now, there are all kinds of people. You know, you think, oh, these guys are all losers, you know, they don't have any life. Let me tell you 6 different types of people that made up the now generation that lived at Haight, Ashbury. You obviously, what type of people were there? They're youths, but what type of people? Who was there? What? Hippies. We haven't got to that, but good. Okay. Okay. But what type of people? Do you think there were college students there? Yeah. Sure there were. There were a lot of not high school students, but high school dropouts. So you had college students living in Haight, Ashbury, taking part in the now generation, the counterculture movement. You had high school dropouts. You even had professional people like doctors and lawyers that were taking part in this. Were they younger doctors and lawyers? Yes. Didn't have many 60 or 70-year-old doctors and lawyers there, but you had some younger ones. Okay, you had people that were rich. You had people that were poor. You had people that were in the middle financially. And the last thing is you had every ethnic and racial group in America represented at Haight, Ashbury. So you had college students, high school dropouts, professional people such as doctors and lawyers. You had rich people, you had poor people, you had people in the middle financially. And you had every ethnic group possible in Haight, Ashbury. Now we're getting to Erin because she's on top of it here. Inhabitants of this area considered themselves hip and began to refer to themselves as hippies. There you go. You ever heard that? Hippies is not a term. My dad used to say it all the time. Bunch of damn hippies down there. I mean, that's just, my dad see a kid with long hair, damn hippie. I'm not kidding you. You know, a girl with a flowery dress on, damn hippie. My dad, you know, he was, well, he'd have been in his 90s now. So he knew the term of hippies.
So did he call you a hippie?
He didn't let me get to the hippie part until after I got to college. Then he just ignored me. But did anybody ever watch Clint Eastwood in the movie, they're in Grenada fighting? Oh, come on. Heartbreak Ridge. Anybody seen Heartbreak? Yeah. Do you remember when he called that kid a hippie and he looked at him and said, hippie? Nobody said that term since the Stone Age, remember? Because he was an old guy. So they began to call themselves hippies. But it's clear in my mind because my dad used it all the time. Now, if you were going to look at a hippie, you'd see somebody with flowing hair and bell-bottom jeans. And we're going to talk about bell-bottom jeans later when we get into fashions. I had the best pair of hash jeans they were called you'd ever seen. I'll tell you about them later. They were the thing, like the ones you buy now with holes cut in them for $100. Hash jeans, bell bottoms. Those are the thing. I wish I'd have kept a pair because you'd been astonished. Okay, moving on. They even set up businesses at the intersection of Haight and Ashbury. The first legitimate business there was known as the Psychedelic Shop. So you got to remember, this isn't the whole town of San Francisco. It's an intersection of Haight and Ashbury, that area. Okay, it'd be like Bighorn and 10th. Is that the one that? I mean, it'd be like just an intersection, and probably a block or so down each way. Okay. Well, the Psychedelic Shop catered to the needs of hippies through drug paraphernalia. Okay? So the Psychedelic Shop was the first business that opened in Haight-Ashbury, and it had drug paraphernalia. Now this is how old I am, and you maybe will not understand this. They sold things like rolling papers, roach clips, and hash pipes. Anybody know what that is? Don't admit it if you do. Okay. Okay. Now they have marijuana pills. I mean,
do they really?
Yeah. I mean, I've read somebody.
Are those like the medicine? Is that like the medicine though?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But in the old days, you rolled your own. The old days, you rolled your own. Okay. I mean, you didn't have any of these. I mean, that's what you did. Okay. You had roach clips. Does anybody know what a roach clip is? Now, I'm not trying to make you be a drug addict. I'm just telling you how it was in the 1960s. What are roach clips?
It's just like a little clip that you hold your drug in so you don't burn yourself.
Really? Did you read that?
They sell them at Zumiez. They sell like hot sauce and like.
Well, in my day, she's right. In my day, alligator clips were those things that you used for wires. You ever seen them look like alligator mouths? And yeah, and she's right. People would put their marijuana cigarettes on roach clips, so you want to get, but you're going to waste your money. I mean, you don't throw away this much. You go clear to the end, baby. So you get that roach clip, right? Okay. What's a hash pipe? What's a hash pipe? Am I getting red? What's a hash pipe? Hashish is just a higher grade form of marijuana, so to speak. And there you go.
Tobacco pipe.
Yeah, bongs. They started calling them bongs in the 70s and 80s. Thank you, Sadie. She's almost as great as I am. Anyway, hash pipes were a big deal. They were just little pipes, and they actually made them out of pipes. I mean, pipe like you would fix your sink with. They would put them together. Whatever.
Like metal?
Yeah, and those are the things they sold at this Psychedelic Shop, and I'm sure they sold the product also. Well, the point being, because of all these great temptations in Haight-Ashbury, by early 1966, more and more people began to migrate to that area. It became quite an area, I mean, in general. And it made the streets incredibly crowded, and who did it put a squeeze on? Who did it really tick off? No? No, think about it. These guys just pour into this. Okay, so all of a sudden, 19th and Park become the new Haight-Ashbury in Warland. I live on 500 South 19th. Well, yeah, people lived there before they came. It really put a squeeze on them, and they really got upset about it. Well, because of this, relationships between the new people moving in and the old people that had lived there forever before it became so famous in the counterculture movement began to hate each other. The relationships were awful. They were just awful. Now, you couldn't help where you lived, but you could help where you ran around, right? So because of this conflict, they actually split. The hippies claimed Haight Street, and the older residents claimed Ashbury. So obviously you couldn't move your home, but as far as your social life and running around in the Haight-Ashbury area, because of this strained relationship between new residents and older residents, the hippies or the counterculture or the now generation claimed Haight Street, and the older residents claimed Ashbury. So as far as socially and running around, you'll see all the action now mainly on Haight Street. Now what came to Haight besides, that wasn't so negative, but what filtered into Haight other than drugs and people? What type of people came in that people enjoyed listening to? Musicians, okay? So some of our more famous musicians from the 1960s and 1970s moved into the area of Haight. Janis Joplin, for instance. And we'll talk more about her later in detail. Janis Joplin. You ever heard of Janis Joplin? How many people heard of Janis Joplin? Okay. Anybody heard of Grace Slick? She was a really famous singer for a group called Jefferson Airplane. Jefferson Airplane. So Grace Slick was a very famous musician that moved into Haight. And she was a singer in the group Jefferson Airplane. And Jerry Garcia, who's he? Head of what famous group? Mr. Tonkovich loves them. Come on, I'm going to be disappointed if you don't tell me. How many people take a German? Well, you should know who he is. He's got pictures of him outside his door. He used to. Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. You guys never heard of the Grateful Dead? Holy moly. Go ask Mr. We're going to, later on, we'll give you some samples when we get the music. We'll do that. Ask Mr. Tonkovich if he knows who Jerry Garcia is. He kind of looks like you. No, I'm serious. Yeah, he does. When you see a picture of Jerry Garcia, he kind of looks like him. Now, they had a really famous concert in Haight on October 16th, 1966. October 16th, 1966. And this concert was known as the Love Pageant Rally. And it had a purpose. It was going to be a peaceful protest for something. Or against something, not for something. Against something. It's called the Love Pageant Rally. I think it's on your sheet, isn't it? It's called the Love Pageant Rally. This was a very famous music concert in Haight on October 16, 1966. And it was designed as a peaceful protest against the banning of LSD, which we'll talk about, in the state of California. So, this Love Pageant Rally was a peaceful protest against the banning of LSD in California. We'll tell you about LSD and all that here later. Again, with not the, not trying to get you into this, just tell you what it is. Now, approximately 3,000 people attended this Love Pageant Rally. The ones that entertained the crowd were Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, and Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. So it was a pretty popular concert. Okay, now, the problem with Haight during the mid-1960s to the late 1960s, it was a very disorganized community with no leadership. I mean, people just moved in there, can you imagine? And so it had very little leadership, and it was becoming a problem. So a group got together and tried to take on the first leadership role in Haight. Okay, and that group was known as what? The Diggers. Okay? So there was no leadership in Haight among the counterculture movement. Okay, it was becoming a problem. So a group of people who were there thought, if we can provide some leadership qualities here and get some things organized, maybe this won't turn out to be a disaster. So the group that did that became known as the Diggers. And they organized in Haight what became known as the Free Store. The Free Store. So a group who attempted to take on the first leadership role in Haight were known as the Diggers. The Diggers organized something that went down in hippie history, so to speak, as the Free Store. And the reason the Diggers made the Free Store was to try to bring the community together and work as one. So what was the Free Store? What do you think it was, Emily? What was the Free Store? Come on, don't overthink this.
Was it a store where things were free?
Yeah, the girl. Yeah, the girl. Yeah, and what happened is people did they have jobs there? I mean, no. What were they doing? Just living free. So what do you run out of when you're living free? You run out of money. And if you don't have any money, you can't buy any clothing, you can't buy any shoes, you can't buy any lodging, anywhere to stay, you can't buy any food. So people were running out of these things, right? People were running out of these things. And so what the Free Store did in the Diggers is they provided those people that needed clothing and shoes and lodging and food and on occasion money and they gave it to them for free. Okay? That was the idea behind the free store, to help people that didn't have any clothing, food, lodging, shoes, and money. Now, where did these guys get the money to buy those things to give them away? They just pull it out of their own pocket? What do you think they did? What? Well, that's a good guess. No, who really doesn't want a bunch of freeloaders around their community? Businesses, other businesses. There were grocery stores, there were local restaurants, there were hardware stores, there were all kinds of businesses there before these people moved in. And what they did, it was kind of ingenious, is the diggers went to these stores and restaurants and they said, "Carl, will you donate some items? Will you donate some money so we can get these people going, and maybe they'll go out and get a job, and maybe they'll, you know, get going and make this a positive experience." Well, if you're a local restaurant and a business, wouldn't you rather donate a little bit to get those people going in the right direction than continue to watch them beg all the time? So that's how they got their money. Well, that was a great one. Hey, good job. We'll talk about the rest of the Haight Ashbury tomorrow. And that card, who's got the card? Okay. Did you get it signed, Mauricio? No.